and you can see.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Missouri Community Betterment Lunch and Learn. Today, we are joined by Rachel and Crystal from Maximize Northwest Missouri, and I'm going to kick it off to them to get started, and then we'll follow up with some Missouri Community Betterment stuff at the end. Do you guys want to take it away?
We've got it. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's great to see you too. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Rachel Kigge, and I am the chairwoman of Maximize Northwest Missouri as a member of the Community Foundation of Northwest Missouri's Board of Directors. And as a Northwest Missouri transplant, I have come to love this region of our state, call it home, and desire to work hard to ensure that this remains a place that creates value and opportunity. So hopefully one day my own 3 children can return here if they choose, and build a life. I know that you might be representing all different areas of the state. We're going to talk, you might hear us reference specifically Northwest Missouri because that is the region that we are focused on. However, we firmly believe that these top 5 impacts on community success are true of any community, no matter where it's located. And we know that that's true because our framework is Baldrige-based, embedded in Communities of Excellence framework. We might share a little bit more as we go, but so you might hear references to Northwest Missouri, but we believe this can be true for you too, and would love to have you join us. So thank you for joining us for today's conversation. We know that if you're here, you share with us a passion for the success of your community or your region as a whole, and we're excited that you chose to spend some time with us and learn more about how you can have a direct impact on creating your community's preferred future. So with that in mind, I want you to start thinking about your community. So if you're where you can, use the chat box, great. And if not, maybe just very quickly unmute and we'll keep moving. But as you think about your community, either put in the chat box or, like I said, unmute and share, what puts your community on the map? When we started thinking about sustainable community development, action usually gets started from a few questions. What's great about your community? What could be improved? How has your community changed over the last 5, 10, 20 or more years? What has stayed enduring and constant? So, in another way of saying that is what puts your community on the map within our state or within your region at large. So if you've got one community or one person commented that for them it's Mark Twain Lake, that's great. What else? What do you think puts your community on the map? How are you known?
Troubles.
Trouble. Okay. Well, that brings me to my next question is, as you're thinking about that, maybe you were willing to share, maybe you're not, that's totally fine. I think another question to ask yourself is the way you would describe your community what you want now and for future generations? Are you frustrated with how long it takes to get things done around here? Not only is your community changing, but our region and our state is changing. Not only is your community unique, but it's part of what makes our entire region and state special. So we, with Maximize Northwest Missouri, exist to help you answer these questions. We take the answers and use them to help your community grow and prosper toward your preferred future. We exist to help you reach common goals faster as a community. So before we share more about the top 5 impacts on community success, I believe there are likely people with us who appreciate some context and knowing where we came from. So Maximize Northwest Missouri is a program or an initiative of the Community Foundation of Northwest Missouri. And the Community Foundation began officially in 2012 and exists with the following mission in mind: through regional collaboration, increase the power of charitable giving and philanthropy, to transform our region into an economically vibrant area. It's from this mission and more than a decade of research that Maximize Northwest Missouri exists today. You've already heard me refer to the region a few times, and this is a map of the 18 counties of Northwest Missouri that represents the region that the Community Foundation and therefore Maximize Maximize Northwest Missouri exists to serve. And again, as we share, there's many ways for no matter where you're located to get involved or for our framework to benefit the work you're already doing. And so we just think it's helpful to have some context about why we exist or where we exist. So this map shows that even within this region, we're not all the same. We come to the table with many different perspectives, needs, goals, and voices. The colors in the map indicate population differences, but we are interdependent. Each of our communities needs each other to succeed in order for the region to succeed. And I'm sure that's true of where you're located too. Maximize Northwest Missouri is about finding the win-win strategy to create a common vision for the region from our many voices. I'd like to introduce Crystal Galnick. Crystal is the owner of Jupiter Communications in Clinton County and serves as a vital and valuable member of our team. She's really the engine that keeps us going. So within Maximize Northwest Missouri, she just is pivotal. She'll take over for a few minutes here to share about how we got to where we are today and why we believe this work is difference making.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. Hello, everyone. We're just both happy to be here and excited to see you and feeling wonderful that the tornadoes have moved through and we're in a good shape today on this spring day. So I just wanted to share this piece of our story. When the Community Foundation started this work a decade ago, and when we talk about this work, we're really talking about wider community development, regional vitality, making sure that it's a great place to be and that people want to be, because we really took notice of the fact that over the past 100 years, we've lost a lot of population. So we started this work really with a transfer of wealth study that pointed out that nearly $54 billion are in the midst of transfer in the region as older generations pass on, leaving their earthly treasure, right there, their wealth, whether it's their land or other assets, to the younger generations, many of whom frankly don't live here anymore, which means a good chunk of that is also leaving the region. So we started asking some questions. Why don't younger people choose to live here? It's rural America. It's beautiful. It's green. It's lovely, right? That should be enough. And what we found are quite a few different things. We just really wanted to figure out what is going on with our population. And so we did a deep dive into better understanding what's happening and conducted, an ongoing study. So in this map, it's just a really quick snapshot. I know it's pretty small, probably on your screens, but it shows the estimated percentage of change from 2020 to 2030, just a 10-year period. And the green simply means we're growing, and the yellow is fairly stable, and the orange and the red are areas that are losing. There are too many orange and red spots on this map. So even the areas that are growing, frankly, are behind the rest of the state. And when it comes to our traded dollars, Missouri's gross domestic product, GDP, stats are behind all of our Midwestern neighbors. And so we're all in Missouri, right? So this one should probably get some notice from all of us on the line here today. It's kind of a sobering story, and really, there's a whole lot more data that we've looked at and more information that can be found on our website if you want to dig into that a little bit deeper. But to keep our time today moving along, the summary point of this slide is that we've learned that all of the infrastructure and the sectors, the different areas of interest, right, of the economy, health and safety, education, housing, and other quality of life areas are more interconnected than we often realize. And it all suffers when there are fewer people within them over long periods of time. So our region's wealth and health depend on not only keeping and attracting more people to live, learn, earn, give, and play here, but also on our ability to work together across borders, across jurisdictions, across different sectors, and balance maintaining what's really great about our rural life, while also being as innovative and globally connected as possible, because people need to feel that they belong and have their life needs in today's world met, right? So, I mean, a sense of belonging is one of the biggest things that impact population. So we believe that you and I and the many engaged citizens and leaders in our communities across the state can do something really good about the decline. Not all of our areas are declining across the state, but many of them are. So we think that by looking at our place to make sure these three things that you see on the screen are met is a worthwhile endeavor. So a December 2020 Gallup poll tells us that approximately 48% of Americans would rather live in a smaller rural community than the big cities if they felt that they could. So I was really kind of surprised by that. Frankly, we've been told for years that, we're in the middle of this brain drain and that everybody wants to live in an urban area, except maybe for me. I thought maybe I was the sore thumb out, right? But that is not true. Nearly half of Americans would actually prefer to live in small towns and places that they feel that they're surrounded by a little more green in nature. So, we think this is great. We think this is a bit of hope that's largely due to the preferences of our younger workforce, which are the millennials and now Generation Z. And if you're hiring any young kids to help out with your yard work or anything, you're also looking at Generation Alpha, right? So our younger generations are starting to show that they really do value some of the things that we hold true and love in our small communities, which I think is very exciting. So that being said, through my work outside of Maximize Northwest Missouri, I actually study a lot of different generational trends fairly deeply and have recently read a data-driven article in the Kansas City Business Journal about the importance of considering these younger generations. Those are who are still in school and college and in their 20s who are thinking about where they want to live. They're smaller in number than the group that's now in the middle of retiring. So just looking at the numbers alone, there's going to be fewer people in the workforce. That on top of so many other challenges that we've experienced with COVID and everything else over the past few years, this population work, this placemaking work that we're talking about is critical if we want our communities to thrive. So attracting and retaining that talent can be summarized as addressing the attachments, the anchors, and amenities of our counties and our communities. The number one reason people choose to live where they decide to live is family and friends. Okay. We can't do much about that. But the second reason, jobs, and all of the other reasons that you see listed on this slide, we can definitely do something about a lot of these things listed here. The emotional engagement, the places that people want to spend time, making sure that there are restaurants and stores and parks and trails and recreation and arts and culture and fun events and really good infrastructure, as good as we can afford, right? All of those things, making sure our schools are strong, making sure our communities feel welcoming, those are things we can impact. So the work being done on this journey is really all about ensuring that local communities and the region, at least within our region and certainly can be within your regions as well, it's enhancing our places because we know that making the places we live our lives the best it can be is what will help us keep and attract the residents that we need. We also know that the people who are here, well, we've already chosen this place, right? So it's important to balance any enhancements with protecting what we love about our great rural life as well, not stepping on toes and not making so much change that people are overwhelmed or threatened. We also truly believe that we're better together. So making sure that our public and our private and our nonprofit efforts are actually working together instead of just in parallel, right? Really, truly working together could really hold us together better as well. It's critical to make sure that we're not crossing lines or just working in silos, if that makes sense. And recognizing opportunities across the map, across some of those lines that we don't always like to cross, right? Whether they're just created by sports between each community, and there's competition in that way, or maybe they're jurisdiction lines, maybe they're school district lines, maybe they're county lines. A lot of those lines are invisible, and we want to make sure that they are just non-existent when it comes to creating community across our entire region, because we know that the people impacted really have a chance to be a part of the decision-making process. And we know that that too is a key part of our envisioned end goal. So, what are we doing exactly, right? This all seems like a great idea, but specifically, what we have been doing in Northwest Missouri over the past few years, as Rachel mentioned, we have had several regional leaders remind us that, and I love this quote, help is not on the way. We have to figure out how to help ourselves. And I think this particular leader, his name is Lowell Cruz, when he says that, he just means that, we can't always depend on our state or federal government to just sweep in and save the day, or any one private foundation, or any one person who decides to invest in a community and pass some of their resources on, or invest in a park or something like that, right? Like, we can't just depend on somebody coming in to save us. We actually have to get together and work on things ourselves. And I think I'm probably speaking to the choir here within Missouri Community Betterment, because you're all here. You're showing up to help lead in your communities. But that being said, with that sort of mantra and recognition at the beginning of this work, we're simply asking, what can we do together than any one of us can't do as well alone? It's not about duplicating efforts. In other words, it's making sure that we come together around some shared priorities. So, to help bring people around this question and learn how to answer it, Maximize Northwest Missouri's Guiding Coalition offers service to the region and its communities and the counties, and can really be summed up in 4 categories. Right now, we're focusing on the 4th one today, which is our community development and leadership programs. But you can really see here that it's a lot of listening that's going on, and it's a lot of helping folks better understand our story, envision a potential future story, and then get organized and empowered around taking action together to create that new story. So our largest endeavor really has been the creation of a set of resources that are deeply researched and highly proven practices for community development and what we call next level leadership. We have learning programs, we're doing some community coaching, and providing some technical assistance for individuals and groups who just want to work together better. To support these services and programs, the number of people, communities, and organizations involved in funding and in participating and in supporting in some other way is growing. And that's really exciting for us, because we just weren't sure if this was going to really take root and grow, but it is, and we're excited about that. So you can just see, this is just a sampling. It's not even a complete list, but some of the different organizations and people that have been involved along the bottom of the screen. We'll share a little bit more about that here in a minute. Rachel, why don't you go ahead and tell them a little bit more about our program?
Absolutely. So this time together is kind of a formal invitation to join us in that 4th focus. We are inviting you to participate in our Introduction to Community Excellence, Reaching Common Goals Faster program. This program will help you and your community take action on the 5 impacts on community success that we'll be revealing momentarily. And whether or not you choose to join us, we think that those 5 impacts are really thought-provoking and create opportunities for action. So if you're curious if the Maximize Northwest Missouri approach is a fit for your community, our introduction program is for you. This is an opportunity for individuals across the region and the state to explore our process and discover how your community can work together to reach common goals faster. Once a small group is formed to take action on that learning together, our second level programming is offered to help communities build strong teams for community excellence. And that's a year-long program that runs from September to September. So what you see here is the bedrock of what we exist to help communities accomplish. It is a simple framework that guides communities and the region through a repeating cycle that empowers progress. This cycle guides community leaders and stakeholders through a process of becoming realists by becoming aware of and seeing our current story clearly, becoming optimists by believing in what could be and casting vision for the future, followed by becoming activists by developing a clear plan and taking action toward that preferred envisioned future. So once again, what puts your community on the map? As we prepare to dive into the top five impacts on community success, I want you to keep your community clearly in mind, or the communities you serve. How might this be helpful to the place that you live, learn, work, and play? We'll introduce you to the top five impacts on community success and how we believe our framework helps to create the right conditions for creating this impact and desired community transformation for vitality for the future. Crystal, why don't you get us started?
Got to come off of mute, right? Yeah. So let's dig into what we promised to share with you today. The first on our list is how to focus on leveling up your community or county. Why? Because taking care of the place that you and your neighbors live, and now, right? Like the place that you spend all of your time now will really help to ensure that it's still a great place later for your kids, your grandkids, and your great grandkids. It's hard to think hard for me to think about that, but it's so important to think ahead. And we know that this is a multi-generational journey. That's always kind of a theme for me, but we don't always think about several generations of impact in our project-based and decision-making today, but it really is essential. Excuse me. So our experience so far has taught us, this is the money slide, folks. Our experience has taught us that the only communities that are really thriving across the globe, especially those that we've studied in the United States, have these three characteristics. One is they have a can-do attitude, right? They're positive, they're hopeful, they're forward thinking, and they're doers, and frankly stubborn enough to say, you know what, stop telling me we can't. We can if we come together and we align our resources, and make some good decisions together. So having a can-do attitude is incredibly important. Two, they invest in themselves with their own time, talent, and treasure through civic engagement, philanthropy, public-private partnerships, funding, those sorts of things, right? Yeah, they basically put their money where their mouth is in some way, shape, or form. And they do it collectively, right? Everybody pitching in a little can really make a big impact. And the third is they develop leaders across generations. 100%. They don't feel like the oldest folks in the community have to shoulder all of the responsibility. They really spread it out to make sure that everyone has a voice and an opportunity to grow and thrive within that community and play an active role in it and feel valued and respected for that role. So these are the keys to growing and thriving. And the Maximize My Community Journey, that's what we call our framework that we're using, guides community leaders through all three of these. We named the foundational tool of our programs and services with brackets around these words that you see at the bottom there, because it really is all about you. You and your friends and your neighbors and your family members and everyone in your community. So in other words, pop your community name right in there and envision yourself on a journey to maximize your potential. So, as important as it is to know what works, that last slide, it's also really critical to understand what this journey is not. It's not competitive, it's not partisan or political or duplicative. And in today's day and age, that's sometimes hard to believe, right? Because it seems like everybody has a side, and sometimes it's so far divided. But really, it's practicing systems leadership. It's practicing those habits of inclusivity. It's practicing patience with each other, and oftentimes just listening more than talking sometimes, to really make sure that it's not competitive, partisan, political, or duplicative. You don't want to step on anyone's toes. So with this in mind, you might already have some really wonderful things going on in your communities. Maybe you already have some initiatives or projects that people are working on together, like Main Street or clearly community betterment organizations, right, in your own communities. Maybe you're following something like Community Heart and Soul or WealthWorks or others. There's lots of different models out there, right? And they're all great because they're targeted to specific needs within community and community development and overall improvement. The journey that we have put together with lots of input from national folks who are really good at this stuff and practice in our own communities here in Missouri and across the country is just simply the most comprehensive guide to ask and document what is happening, how is it being done, and how well is it working out, right? That's a key question. And who's involved, and then just simply suggest some ways to fill the gaps and enhance what's already working well. So that's not competition. It's not stepping on toes or recreating any wheels. It's all about leveling up and going from good to great. If you're familiar with Jim Collins' work, he has a whole book on going from good to great. He talks about companies, but we're really talking about communities here. So Rachel is going to share just a little bit more about the who in the second impact on community success.
Great, thanks, Crystal. The second impact on community success is the inclusion of multiple diverse voices. Why should we include more people? I think probably all of us here think like we'd love to have more people involved and caring about what's happening in our community, right? But we also believe that that's important because listening to, respecting, and considering the diverse perspectives of different age groups, income levels, public, private, and nonprofit sectors, and all the other traditional forms of diversity help us to ensure we know our current reality from all angles. Including multiple voices helps us think about all the strengths, assets, and aspects that put our community on the map. Yet competition with those around us tends to be so top of mind, right? We forget what gives our community its strengths. We often find ourselves focusing on what's important to our immediate interests and surroundings instead of considering our whole environment. So in including multiple voices, we also prioritize having all major sectors in our community at the table. Through research, we found that the 5 most critical sectors in any community, county, and region, in addition to those that traditionally come to mind when considering diversity, are those that bring together representatives from our health, economy, education, housing, and quality of life organizations around the same table, quite literally. What you see on this slide is a representation of who in your community might represent these 5 sectors. When we have all these individuals and interest areas represented around the same table, we're able to be many voices organizing around one vision and shared priorities for our community. For just a brief moment, think about what opportunities this could afford your community. What if we had been meeting around the same table, discussing priority issues, resources, and vision before ARPA funds were made available a few years ago? What could we have been poised, planned, and ready to take action on the day money was available? In some of our communities, when we start asking about dreaming big, one of the first questions people ask is, how are we going to fund it? And one of the things we always say is, let's start with the plan, because funding can come, right? But most opportunities for great funding come when there's a great plan in place. So let's start with getting a great plan organized so that we can figure out how we're going to invest in ourselves. We think the model to include and invite all voices around the table empowers untold action and progress for our communities across the region and across our state. So many voices, one vision, organizing themselves around shared priorities. Crystal, tell us about impact number 3.
Great. Yes. So dreaming big to include all of those many voices to find a common goal and identify shared priority really takes some work, but it is also really more about a shift in mindset. Sometimes zooming out and looking at the big picture helps us better see how things really are for ourselves and our neighbors. And we can see how we all fit in, and we can see what's working and what isn't, right? So we talk a lot about big picture thinking and a big picture approach, simply so we can do a better job of helping each other see all of those pieces and parts, right? It's really hard to tell what a puzzle looks like when you're only looking at a piece or a little section of pieces put together. But once it all comes together and you kind of pull yourself out and take a look at the whole thing, you can really see what that picture is. So you might be asking yourself, why would looking beyond ourselves be worth our limited resources of time, talent, and treasure, right? Because we're super busy and we all wear lots and lots of hats. I know I've certainly asked myself that question. It's difficult to see beyond the roles and responsibilities and challenges that are right in front of us today, especially, when we've just got so little time and we feel so stretched. But it is incredibly important and it's worthwhile, I promise you, because the answer lies in how we're all interconnected and have some key shared needs and desires. We have much more in common than we don't with each other in our communities. And that's sometimes hard to see when we don't take time to just pause a minute, breathe, and really look at the bigger picture and consider what's going on in others' lives and industries and sectors. So by focusing on what we share and learning how to consider how we all influence and impact each other, we really can make a bigger difference together more effectively than any one of us could on our own. Remember that question that we're always asking? So regardless of what priority is placed in the center of this diagram that we've shared with you, kind of this interconnection and interdependency and inclusion roundtable, if you will, within a community, um, you know, everyone plays a part, right? So regardless of what topic we're talking about, whether it be broadband and does everybody have access to high-speed broadband, or maybe it's about even the uh, declining number. I'm trying to give you some examples here, right, of maternity resources in many communities across the state. That even really does impact and is interdependent with everybody in this particular graphic. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that looking at your assets or different types of capital or skill sets or assets or strengths, right? All of these different things that you see here, we can build on those when we have a can-do attitude. Maximizing the potential of communities is about so much more than money. Money is important. It's one of the assets we have to have, right? And we've talked a little bit about that. Rachel just mentioned it. But creating a culture that includes different viewpoints really helps remove some of the bias that we have, the roadblocks to getting the highest priorities taken care of first. And this journey is really just helping us understand that asset-based community development is an approach that builds on what's good. And that is really the basis of this approach, this big picture approach to working on improving our communities here within Northwest Missouri and really everywhere, because we want all communities to thrive. So with that, we wholeheartedly believe that small groups of committed citizens in our communities can make a transformative difference. Following a guided path focused on organizing many voices around one table and empowering everyone to get away from their short-sighted projects which I admit I run into that all the time, right? They're fun. It's so nice to feel like there's an end in sight to some things, right? And we have to have those. We have to keep doing those. But we also have to be willing to look ahead and be committed to this journey over a longer period of time. So we want to get away from the short-sighted projects that end up being less effective sometimes than what we hoped for. And that really is the secret ingredient of this wise quote by anthropologist, I can never say that word, Margaret Mead. So by committing thoroughly and thoughtfully to a framework like the Maximize My Community journey, you really can reach your shared goals faster than doing the same things over and over and over. The tools and the resources within this journey don't magically have all the answers. Wouldn't that be great? But it can feel a little miraculous, I have to admit, when people start working together that you didn't think were ever going to get past some of their things, right? But when they start working together with more intention in a unified manner, they really can make a difference. And we've added two words to this quote here. We've added empowered and we've added organized, because we know that you can have a ton of people show up doing lots of great things, but if they're not really empowered to work together and organized enough to make sure that things aren't being duplicated, right? And that resources are being leveraged to the best of their ability, we just have a lot of good stuff going on that really doesn't make as big of a difference as that we're hoping for. So that's why this empowered and organized and just an approach, which is honestly a great series of questions to keep everybody on target and focus, can be really, really helpful. Another favorite quote that I have, and I don't put it on the screen here, is it's from Edward Deming, who once said, every system, just kind of think about this, right? Every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. So is the system, or another way of saying that is the way things get done around here in your community, are they getting the best results that it can possibly get and that you all want it to get? Because right now it's designed perfectly for what's happening. So if we want something different, we have to change something within how we do things around here. That being said, this framework, we've tried to keep this fairly simple, is full of proven practices. It's helped many communities and companies for decades change and enhance their way of doing things to get different and better results. It's a step-by-step approach that you don't necessarily have to go linearly. You can kind of go all over the place as long as you hit all the points. But it's really what we share with you in all of our different programming in our work. And we can also deeply coach through some of our other programs. Our team doesn't really want you to duplicate or recreate efforts that you may already be implementing. And I want to say that again. Whatever you might already be doing in your community is great. Keep doing it. We're simply here, and this framework is simply here. And this is what we've reminded all of the communities that we have involved here in Northwest Missouri. It's just here to help you make those efforts be their absolute best. And if you and your community aren't amid another program, you do have the benefit of finding all these great resources for rural leaders in one place. So you can think about that as it's a how-to guide for sustainable community development. It's kind of a buffet of all the best research in one plate, saving you time and money of doing a lot of that different research yourself. But let's keep moving because there's another impact that we want to share with you. Rachel?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll keep moving. So we've got time for questions and stuff here at the end. But the fourth impact on community success is an organized and empowered group that is ready to move beyond reactive to prepared and working together. Traditional efforts in our communities, like we've already mentioned here today, tend to be pretty project-based. We're often reacting to the ideas shared and opportunity presented and then taking action and moving forward to the next thing without a big picture, holistic, organized approach. Why is it so difficult to move beyond being reactive? Well, probably for a number of reasons, but one of which is because we don't always trust each other enough. to do what it takes to be proactive, building the relationships necessary to discuss and align plans and invest in collective priorities, beyond basic cooperation. Let's face it, we get so focused and so busy doing things the way they've always been done and fiercely protecting ourselves or our organizations that we find it difficult to imagine any other possibilities or know how to start and sort through what traditions are still relevant and which ones need updating. We've had a couple of recent new organizations pop up in our community, and it's been fascinating to me that some of the first questions we get is, well, how is this different from, or how is this going to compete with this other ongoing effort, right? And so it's been part of the work to say, we're not competing, right? We're trying to enhance and elevate what this other effort is doing. And here's how we complement each other. But some of the first questions is to get protective, right? And how is this going to hurt what's already been happening? But when we can do this, when we can move from being reactive to aligned and integrated, it empowers us to move toward active collaboration to ensure the best outcomes for the largest number of people and organizations. Our approach has an impact on community success because we provide the tools and support to move from being many reactive voices operating on projects in silos or in parallel, like Crystal mentioned earlier, within our communities, toward aligned and integrated teams with one clear vision. We like to call this aligned, integrated, and action-taking effort collaboration. This is a very different from our traditional models of working together. We have a tendency in communities to compete, cooperate, or collaborate. Each has their place, but it also falls short of sustainable, transformative action toward community development. Collaboration or collaborating is more than just getting on the same page or openly discussing topics and shared priorities. Collaboration goes beyond planning to getting things done well, sustainably, and together. It takes longer, to be sure, but it's worth the effort. It is collaboration with an emphasis on action, actually doing something together, with a focus on joint, mutual, and common goals. Collaboration empowers us to make fact-informed decisions together, putting in the effort and weighing choices after considering many perspectives and doing something specific with the intention of progressing onward and upward together. Moving to an integrated and collaborating team within your community might sound like a high and lofty goal. We get it. It sounds like, yep, that would be nice, right? But we know that this is a key impact on community success. It does require a shift in thinking together, but never fear. We don't expect you to do this alone. Through our introduction to community excellence and other programs, we teach tools and strategies to support, uplift, and help you on your journey. Throughout the program, we teach and share many different tools and discover how to create breakthrough thinking together. Participants are provided resources to become more empowered and organized in working together. An additional, and I believe crucial benefit is the sustainability of this approach. This sounds like a much less attractive benefit, but I promise you it is one of the best things about the framework. So through the strategies and resources shared, we help your community put together a plan that empowers action for the long term. Here's the question that I think we can probably all nod our heads yes to. Have you ever been involved in an effort or a project that had a lot of energy, but then tends to die out or lose steam when a key individual has to step away? Maybe the lead organizer of the group, the person with the most energy, or the person that held all of the information needs to take a sabbatical for a health crisis, or their interests just changed, or they move out of the community. Through the tools and processes we provide, this hurdle can be overcome. And I think that is huge. So Crystal, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, that is absolutely huge, Rachel. So the fifth impact is simply being able to access answers and opportunities, making sure that you have a place where all of that information that's key to making sure that things can keep going and not be 100% dependent on one person is critical. And it's a big part of it. So why is it so difficult to think and act differently to get different and better results? Going back to that quote I shared, because once we start considering lots of perspectives and data and possibilities, it is really easy to get overwhelmed with the complexity of it all. And that is not what this is about. It's about making sure we sort of stay above some of that overwhelming feeling and slow down just enough to more thoughtfully organize and empower ourselves to and each other. We forge blindly ahead, making little progress sometimes, right? That's just human nature when we get overwhelmed. So it's important to really go through this and understand that the journey unfolds a set of key questions at each milestone that can help you uncover equitable and inclusive answers and open doors to solutions and opportunities that just might not have been considered in the past. They also reveal data that informs decision making beyond just traditional assumptions and opinions and perceptions. I think we've all probably seen when decisions have been made that really didn't have enough information for them to be great decisions. So that's a key piece of the sustainability of efforts is built on that trust that springs from transparency and meaningful conversations that are just catalyzed, they're prompted by really helpful questions that walk you through the process. A community engaging in the Maximize My Community Journey framework will often begin this way as a small group of community champions or leaders from many different areas of the community, or maybe even just a couple different areas of the community who really care about the current and the future state, right, of something going on. We call this the core committed group who drive this effort together. We call it the guiding coalition. You'll hear more about this distributed leadership idea in any of our programs, and whether you call it distributed or shared leadership, but it's different than a hierarchy because communities don't have CEOs, right? The power is spread and the decision making and the assets are spread among many different areas. But as this guiding coalition, this group forms, a few things happen at the same time. They begin conversing about big ideas for the near and distant future or an urgent need. You want people to be curious enough to want answers and develop an appreciation for a broader perspective and desire to understand the facts. You need to identify a sense of urgency because nothing happens in any of our lives, right, without a little sense of urgency. But in this case, to really see clearly what the picture is in your story and a desire to take action. And then finally, everyone on your team really needs to agree that making progress on a shared dream or vision and not just their personal agendas or vendettas or whatever you want to call it, right, is the only focus of what they contribute and what is really the basis of your collaborative efforts. So those are just the key things that we want to call out. You need a dream and a team. And we've got a few communities within our region who have done that. So Rachel, let's talk through those a little bit.
Yeah, I will do that. So we've just shared the top 5 impacts on community success that you can experience the benefits of as you engage with us in our Introduction to Community Excellence program. What we'd like to do now is take just a few short moments here to share with you some of the tremendous progress that's happening across the region in those communities who have adopted our Maximize My Community Journey model for community excellence. So what you see here are some of the communities that are involved. First, let's start with Albany in Gentry County. Albany has been with us since the beginning. Sorry, you can go to the next slide, Crystal, thanks. We could spend our full time today discussing some of the amazing things that are happening or have happened in Albany, but I'd like to just highlight a few. Since organizing as a group, as Maximize Albany, they are currently focused on 3 priorities: expanding early childhood education and childcare options, revitalization of their downtown due to the proximity of their hospital, and due to the proximity of their hospital, developing retirement-focused ventures for those who would like to retire in a community like Albany with all it has to offer, in addition to the proximity to healthcare. So there's been some really exciting partnerships discussed and opportunities being developed there. In identifying the need for downtown revitalization, starting a Main Street program was a clear benefit. From what we've learned, many new businesses have developed in their business district in the last few years, including 3 just in the last year. And this demonstrates the impact of our model to empower organized action without competing with or taking over existing successful efforts in the community. In fact, people that are involved in Maximize Albany would share that it was because of organizing their efforts through our framework that they identified that Main Street was the great next opportunity for their downtown. So that's just to emphasize that we don't exist to compete with other amazing things happening across the state, but can help create an organized way to leverage those opportunities. Crystal, why don't you quickly tell us about Clinton County?
Sure, very quickly. Again, we could probably talk a whole hour about this particular county. It's one of those counties where the communities in it haven't always traditionally gotten along very well. And so the fact that they've volunteered to come together and sought us out for some guidance has really been very exciting. It's really unlike Albany. They've been through challenges of learning along with us as we figured out what resources are most helpful within communities. They kind of came to us after our program was really built, and they've completed some very informal but very helpful dream big listening sessions across the county. Through that whole project, they really started to understand what county residents and stakeholders are looking for. So without going through everything on this slide, because I think you all are going to get a copy of these, I just want to say that they listened, they came back, they talked a lot. They decided that they needed to listen some more. And so they've spent another year making different sectors the topic of each of their meetings when they get together on a monthly basis. And that has included several hundred people over the course of about 18 months coming in and just sharing what they love about the area, what they don't love about the area, what they dream about for the area, and what they're actually willing to help, make happen in the area. And I think those are really, really critical. And it has definitely been a formula that's working in Clinton County. And because of it, they've had, some really great outcomes, including the fact that they're in the middle of right now a feasibility study that they were able to attract some USDA funding to figure out if establishing a library in the county would be worthwhile and possible and all of those great things. So just a little sneak peek, but there's a lot of good stuff going on there. And I know Maysville is another group that's new. They're in DeKalb County, just north of Clinton County. In this effort, I say new because they've been involved. I guess it's been about a year. And they are in the middle of their first Dream Big Listening project. They've had the support of the local chamber. Several different members of that community went through our introduction program, and now they've just got this very large group of people together who decided to go ahead and create a visual identifier, a logo as part of their overall brand, and really work to bring together not just the Maysville community, but as you can see by their name, Maysville Area Improvement Network is just fabulous. And they too have been able to tap into a little bit of USDA funding to help support some of their work. And looking forward to picking what priorities they really want to work on together once they're through their listening project. So, and then finally, very early on in our work, we had a couple of other communities who went through some of the training, and they've carried some things forward that they often credit working with us for. So Maryville, for instance, has done an amazing job with doing some of their downtown renovation, and their lead economic developer, Josh McKim up there, often says that we've got organizations working together now that never would have considered talking to each other, much less working together, simply because they used this opportunity to step back, take a look at the bigger picture, and figure out that, oh, maybe this isn't such a competitive situation. We could really do some fun things together. So that's just one thing there. And in Brookfield and Marceline, again, two kind of competing communities in Lane County, they really prioritize leadership development and downtown revitalization as their focus through some different conversations that were catalyzed by this approach. So This was a very quick overview of some key things happening in the communities who have engaged. We've got more that we could certainly share with you, but we just wanted to give you a little glimpse of what's happening up in our little happy corner of the state, and hope that you'll find that this approach might be something that could be effective for your community too, in preparing yourself for some great opportunities that are coming your way, because there are always great opportunities coming your way. It's just a matter of being open to seeing them and leveraging them when they do present themselves. So, in summary, we're just really confident that you too will figure out how to raise awareness of your community's best elements, bring people together in a way that's productive and positive, establish a can-do attitude if you don't already have one, grow that, right? And build bedrock relationships, which are critical, and processes to go with them, and resources that, when present, can really allow your community to take advantage of opportunities and solve problems much faster because you're already working together, as we mentioned.
Right. And here's kind of how we would like to wrap up by just inviting you. We want your community to become one of our success stories, not for our benefit, but for the benefit of your residents and our state. So we would invite you to join us for one of our next Introduction to Community Excellence, Reaching Common Goals Faster programs. And so you can see on your screen there, we have facilitated this in the past virtually this way in 90-minute sessions over the course of 6 weeks. We can absolutely do that, available upon request and interest. We've also decided to try to offer this in a couple of intensive one-day opportunities so that people can come, get all of the information in one day, lunch included, and then leave feeling armed with some tools and resources to get started. And so again, we will share this slide deck and these links with you, but we would love to have you a part of this experience, learning how to maximize our communities across the state. So with that, I'll wrap up. I know we're close on time. Elizabeth, I'll hand it back over to you for any questions or any wrap up you need to do. But thank you all so much for joining us and letting us be a part of your program today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. I've actually been through Maximize Northwest also once before, and it was really beneficial. So I think you guys have a really interesting take on everything. And so if anybody is interested in the audience, it's a great opportunity. I'm going to work just a little bit backwards through some of our regular slides. First and foremost is our annual conference for Missouri Community Betterment is coming up on October 21st. It is going to be at the big Missouri Farm Bureau building in Jefferson City on that day, and we have more details to come. We'll have some information about exact timing, the cost of tickets, where to send payment, hotel room blocks, all of that kind of fun stuff. So I wanted to share that. Also, if I can get my slides to cooperate with me, we also always have the Missouri Community Betterment Better Together Fund. If anybody is interested in contributing to that, that is the QR code for that fund. Here's a little bit more information about that. It's an opportunity to help us continue to offer education and resources and do our annual conference, getting people together to network and connect. Also, our other upcoming lunch and learn dates, I added a few more on here as we go through the rest of the summer. It's almost always the third Wednesday of the month at noon. And here's how you can keep in touch with us. Our website, email, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we are right at the hour, I believe. So I want to be respectful of your all's time. Thank you so much for joining us today and participating.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Crystal.
Bye, everyone. Take care.